Okay. Now remember, these are in metric, so they're going to be fairly large, but we're going to do all 4 on one sheet. This is just to show you how to get an isometric in AutoCAD. You've done it as a sketch, as a board drawing. You know, as a board drawing, you have to use your 30-60 triangle on every line. Well, AutoCAD has a feature that does that for you, and I'll show you how to get into that. All right, so make sure you're in your ANSI A template, and down here where it's like 3 over from ortho, we've got ortho, polar, and then isometric drafting. Okay, you can turn it on here. You can also go to Tools, Drafting Settings, and find it here. You can choose Isometric Snap. All your polar stuff, your object snap, everything that's in this little shortcut toolbar down here is in the drafting settings. So go ahead and turn that on, and then you see the little arrow next to it. Remember, we have 3 different planes in isometric. So you can come in here and change it this way, or F5 on your keyboard toggles it back and forth. So we're going to use F5 as we draw because that's going to be a lot simpler. All right. So when we're looking at this object, and I'm going to paste the object in here. You guys don't have to do this because you can see it up on the big screen. But when we're looking at this object, we know that, and we've drawn it before, it's 114 back. So you want to make sure your ortho is on, isometric drafting is on, and then O-snap is on. Now, one thing that we cannot do in isometrics that we normally do in multi-views is offset. So don't make a line and think that you can offset. Why can't we offset? Why do you guys think we can't offset with isometrics? Because it's already at an angle. Okay? So it's not a true 3D object, but we're drawing it as if we see it 3D because we're making lines. The receding lines are going back at an angle, giving us the perception that it's 3D. So we're going to start out with the line command. And another thing with isometrics, everything has to be direct coordinate entry. Since we can't offset, direct coordinate entry means that we have to type in all of our distances. So I'm going to click on line. I'm going to start. We'll choose our start point at that same point where we sketched it. So we're going to click just somewhere on our screen, and we're going to make sure that we are in, to start out with, I was in isoplane left, okay? But as long as you're in a plane that will go back at this angle to the left, and you can hit F5 and kind of see your options. If I hit F5 and now I'm in iso top, I can still do a width dimension. But if I hit it again, I cannot go back in that direction. So iso right will not let me put in a width dimension, which makes sense because I see height and width in the front view and width in the top view. So you have to be in the front or top planes. So as I'm taking this object back to the left here, I'm going to type in 114. And it's going to go off my screen because this is metric. And remember, AutoCAD doesn't understand metric units versus English units. Okay, 1 unit to AutoCAD is 1 unit, whether it's a millimeter or an inch. So it makes everything look really big. But remember, we scale it to what we need it to be in paper space when we print it. So I'm going to take just a second and move this picture over and actually scale it up so you guys can see it now. Okay, so we made our line. We made it at 114, If you want to kind of check yourself, you would have to do an align dimension. So if we were going to do an isometric dimension, we actually do have an ISO dimension way that we can angle these. But if you wanted to just to check your dimensions here, you would have to do an align dimension because it's at an angle. And you can see indeed that mine was 114. So you can check yourself. Measure tool should work for this, for the first one. Some of the isometrics, if you're trying to measure between 2 points, it might not do exactly right because we're at an angle. Okay, so make sure your line is 114. And then from there, we're going to do just like we did on our sketches. We're going to just follow our dimensions. So I'm going to go up 30, that 38 there. So I'm just going to take another, go into line command again and go straight up. Make sure you keep your ortho on. Just type in 38, enter. Now it's making me come back down parallel with the width command. That's okay. I can go ahead and put that 19 there if I wanted to. So I'm going to type in 19, enter. And I can actually come straight down because if you look at this 13 dimension, it's coming straight down from where I'm at in the corner. So I can come straight down from here, 13, and then I hit enter. And then this comes back. I don't want to snap to midpoint, so I'm going to just take it out across the way there, and I can trim that part. So your snap to perpendicular and those kinds of O-snaps that you've become accustomed to in multi-view drawing, you can't really do that in isometric. So right now I've got this little cutout area that's not even actually part of the object. I still have to go over in the right view to put this 57 depth dimension. Okay, that's going to make me have to click on F5 and change my plane. So I'm going to go back to the line command. I'm snapping to this endpoint, and right now I can't go back to the right, but if I hit F5, it's allowing me to. And as long as you're in ortho, it's going to be parallel to that plane, so we're okay on that. So now back to the right, it's going to be 57. Then I'll hit enter. In that width dimension, 19. So we're really not even getting out of our line command a lot of times in isometric because we can just continue making lines that are adjacent to one another. So I'm not even getting out of the line command. I'm just going to type in 19, enter. And that should come down and connect with the endpoint there in the front. Okay. So remember, we can't offset. Normally, if this was a multi-view, we'd offset down 28. We can't do that. So only in isometric will we end up making lines over top of lines. So I'm going back into the line command. I'm coming back to this corner back here and just going over top of the line that I've already made. And that's okay because we can trim and fix that. But this is 28 if we're following our dimensions. So 28, enter. I know it comes out here. I really don't want to snap to the midpoint because half of 57 is not quite even with the full 28. So just bring it on out and we can trim. And if you look, my line is a little bit darker if you can tell. I really don't need this line anymore. So instead of trying to trim, I'm just going to click on that line and hit delete because what I really needed was that 28 from the corner back here. So instead of trying to trim things, sometimes it's better just to erase. And then I can go back to my line command. I'm going to click on this endpoint that I just made by deleting that line. And I want to go straight down, so I'm going to have to hit F5 for it to make me go straight down. If you were in a different plane, you might not have to hit F5. But to go straight down there, I'm following my dimensions, which is 13. Enter. And then that should connect me to this front corner. Okay. Then I'm going back into line command. And here's a little shortcut if you have not figured this out already. If you right click and choose repeat line, or you can hit L on your keyboard. And that way you don't have to make all of that motion with your hands going back and forth to the line command. So I'm going to start at this intersection. I'm going to go straight down here, 13 as well, and just connect all these corners. So this corner will connect with this front piece. I'll end up trimming here and trimming here. And we can go ahead and do that. I need to trim a little bit out right there. So now we're end up with these back two surfaces that we see in our original. We don't really know how far to go down at these corners. Remember, we're trying not to have to do the math in addition to possibly getting a line wrong. You know, we want to stick to our dimensions. So we're going to do it the easy way and just start back at the front corner like we did in our sketch. Go back 16 and up 19 from this start point here. So again, we'll go to the line command. We're going to make a line over top of a line, but not to worry, we can delete it out. I'm going to have to hit F5 to get it to go in the direction that I want. So I'm coming back here in this width and I'm typing in 16. Enter. Even though my mouse was way back, it only went 16. So it doesn't really matter where your mouse is as long as you're typing in distances. And then I'm going to put my mouse straight up, type in 19. Enter. I know I need to go back towards my right side view. 38 for that depth dimension, so I'm going to hit F5, go back in this direction, type in 38, enter. I can go back straight down 19 like I did before, so I'm going to hit F5 so I can go vertical, type in 19 again, and every time I'm typing in something I'm hitting enter. And then those should connect right here in this corner. All right. So this surface is actually the surface that we see here in the original. And then I know from those points I can come back out the 16 and finish up this little surface here. So I'm going to click on line again from this corner. I have to hit F5 because it's not letting me make that width dimension. That's 16. Enter. I'm going to go down 19 with a vertical line, and then that should come back to connect. Now, if you'll notice, we have this little area here that we don't have a dimension for, but we know the surface goes back to it. So we can start working on a little bit of that. We can click on the line command, take a line back in that direction. We don't know exactly how far to go, so I'm just making a line, but I know this corner, if I make a line at this corner straight down, that's where it comes in together. So I can trim there. Okay. The reason why I went ahead and made that is so I could go back towards my right side view from that corner. So I'm hitting F5 to change my plane. I could type in 57 here. It's just as simple to do that as it is to trim. But if I did not want to type in 57 right there, I could have just brought it back and made it connect with this corner up here. So even though I'm not in the correct plane for it to go 90 degrees, OSnap will override that. So I could snap that line to this endpoint. I'm going to go ahead and hit F5 just so you guys can see my line going straight up and down, and I'm going to snap it to that endpoint. So what we've just established, we have this surface here, which is this backwards kind of L shape, and we have the corner that we can bring down to match up with these corners. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go back to the line command, click on that corner, and hit F5 so it'll come down to my width dimension. I don't really know how far that is. I'm not going to worry about doing the math. I'm just bringing it down because I can go back into the line command from this corner, hit F5, and bring that over. And where those meet is the back corner of my object. So right now, if I look on the original, I'm right here where this 19 dimension is. And then I can come down, hit F5 to change the plane. I'm going to go ahead and type in 19 just to make it easier so I don't have to trim. And I have the outline of the object. Now I do need to trim some of this out. Remember we made that 16 line over top of it. I just went ahead and deleted that 16 line. I could have actually trimmed it. So now I have the object. All I need is the circle. Now the circle is a little bit different, so don't just go to circle command and throw a circle on there. It's kind of like us using our isometric ellipse template when we did a board drawing. So we can't offset to get the location of that circle. What we're going to do is make a line back over top of our line, 57, and out towards us 28 to get that center point. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on line. We're going to start at that corner there where the dimension starts from, and we're going to go back along that back side line. I have to hit F5, so just make sure you're going into the correct plane. And then I'm typing in 57, enter. That puts me here. I'm going to hit F5 again so I can bring it towards me, and I'm going to type in 28, enter. So it's just like putting those measurement marks on your paper when you measure along the line. And so this little spot here is the center of that circle. And isometric circles can be created in AutoCAD. They're actually ellipses, but there is an option in AutoCAD that allows us to make an iso circle, is what it's called. For some reason, when you come up here to the ellipse command, it will not allow you to choose iso circle on that one. I don't understand why, because it used to in the older versions of AutoCAD. But if you type in ellipse in the command bar, if I come down here and start typing in ellipse, E-L-L, it comes up so I can choose it. And then it gives me the option of iso circle. So in the command bar, you're going to click on iso circle, and then it's kind of like the circle command. It wants you to specify the center. So we'll click on the center, and then it's going to allow me to put a diameter in there. So my diameter is 22. So before I put the diameter in, I'm going to show you, right now I'm on the top plane, which is correct. But if I were on the right side plane, it would look like this. And it also says ISO plane right in my command bar. And if I were on the ISO plane left, it would look like this. So you want to make sure you're in ISO top plane. So you can hit F5 at any time to change that plane. And I'm on the correct plane, so I'm going to go ahead and type in 22, enter. Oh, wait a minute. It was asking us for a radius. We were supposed to hit D, enter for diameter, so that's my fault. No worries. It's good to practice this, so let's do that again. Type in ellipse. Click on ISO circle. Specify the center of the circle. We should already be in the same plane. Diameter, if we wanted to put it in a diameter, we could click on it down here, or we could type in D, enter. Right now it says specify radius. So the radius would be 11. And that's going to get us what we need. And let me show you something else. Remember, in multi-views, we could come in here and use the center mark command and click on the circle. We can no longer do that. So we have to actually make center marks. So we're going to kind of go old school here and just drag those lines where they need to be to make center marks. As long as we're keeping them parallel to the correct isometric axis, we're okay. So I'm just creating a center mark, and then I'm going to turn it into the center layer. So create something that's pretty uniform in shape, and then come up here and turn it into the center layer. Now remember, this is in metric, so it's going to look like your center lines are just way too many dashes. But when we go over to paper space, we'll be just fine. So keep it like it is for now. One other thing that we need to do so we don't have overlapping lines is that 57 that we created, that line that we created to go back, that measurement, we'll go ahead and delete it. Because sometimes even when you print, if you have overlapping lines, it'll make that line darker than everything else, so you can really tell later on. So that's the first one that we did. We can go ahead and save this. We're going to use the same drawing file to make all of them, but just in case we lose our work, let's go ahead and go to File, Save As, and you can save these as starter isometrics, because this is from the starter multi-view sheet that I've given you several times now. So you can just call these starter isometrics. So they can go back to that same sheet. And we're going to do another one together, and then I'll let you guys do the last two on your own. So I'm bringing this one in here so we can do it. And we'll just go over a little bit to the side. You know, when we're in AutoCAD, we can move these to wherever we need to move them to. So it's not a huge deal if we start in the wrong spot. But we can see that this one is indeed 114 again in the width. So just make sure your ISO snap is still on and your ortho is still on. And we'll start out at that same point that we always start. So it's 114. And then we can go up 36. So I'm having to hit F5 to go straight up and down. So 36. And then I could go back in this direction 64. You know, if you want to go ahead and do that one and type in 64, or we could come back towards us that 16. We're going to end up doing it either way. So if we do the 16 and then hit F5 and go back 64 and then 16, and those will meet up. Okay, so now we have this top surface here that we can see on our original. We know we need to go down 11, and that's going to come back over 64 and meet up. So we can do that. We're going to go straight down. I have to hit F5 to change my plane. Typing in 11, enter. Coming back in this direction, typing in 64, enter, and it meets up here. So now I have the top surface and that surface that we would see in the right side view. We can now come back and start towards this front again. We know we need to go back along that same line 57 and then up 10. So we'll go back to the line command, come to that point. I'm hitting F5 to get back along that line. And we're making a line over top of a line. That's okay. So type in 57, enter. We're going to go straight up 10, enter. And then we know that we need to come back down 57. Okay. And then we know that we need to go straight up. We don't really have a distance there, but we do know that it's 19 from that other surface. So we have to figure out where that surface is. So I just made a line straight up. I know from this corner that surface is going to meet this line. So I'm going to click on line command, come back from this corner, and just have those meet. Now from that surface, I know I need to go up 19. So now I have a point to where I can measure from. So I'm just going to go back over top of that line and type in 19, enter. And then I really need to go to the right side view, so I'm going to hit F5. And this little tower piece is 16 by 16 square, so I can type in 16, enter, come back in my width dimension, type in 16 again, enter, and just keep coming all the way around until those meet back up. And I honestly don't need all of that line, so I'm going to delete it and bring this one down to meet the line here, just so I don't have a line over top of a line. And then I can go ahead and do my 19 down on each side here. So just clicking on line again, clicking on that corner, I need to go down 19. And this is exactly how we did our sketch. I'm going to do the 19 on the other side. And 19 actually ends up on that line. But it's just easier if we just type in 19. And we know we need to trim this out, but we still need this intersection point because we have to. So we'll go back in this direction at this intersection to 64. And then we know we're still at that same surface, so we know we can go up 19 from there. We can come back towards us 16. Hit F5, change that direction. That's another 16. And just keep hitting F5 until we make that little square there on the top. And again, from that square, we can go straight up and down 19 at each of those corners. And that line ends up coming into this part. So we need to trim here and here. So that gets us the little tower pieces. We can come back at this point and type in that 64 dimension. And it comes up to meet the other. So now that we have everything we need in that little front part, we can go ahead and trim out this line. And you can see that we have this U shape. We have our two little surfaces on the top. And we can go ahead and trim out where we don't need that extra line there at the bottom. We still need to make this little line where the 10 dimension is because we do see a portion of it. So we're just going to make sure that we're going back in the correct direction on it. And then the only thing that's left is this last line, which comes down I have to hit F5 to make it come in the direction I need, but I'm just bringing it on past this line, and I'll go ahead and trim. Because you want to trust your trim a little more than you do your O-snaps in isometric, especially something like that where it might snap to a midpoint or whatnot. The circles are going to be the same way. We have to make lines to find the location. So this is 20 from this line here, then another 41 and 32 across. So we're just going to make a line over top of the lines, starting in that end point. We'll go down 20. And just to keep our spot, we can go in 32 right here because we need that point. And then we can start back in the line command and go down 41, enter, and then come over 32 as well. So now we're doing ISO circles at those two endpoints. Again, type in ellipse. And when you do, you can click on ISO circle. It's going to ask you for the center point of the circle. And then it's asking you for the radius. So that diameter is 20, the radius will be 10. Once we have one circle, we could go ahead and make the other, but we could also use the copy command. So you can copy it from the center point to the location of the other center point. So the center point is my base point, and the other center point is my displacement point. Again, we would want to delete the lines over top of lines, and we could make these center lines nice and neat. And once we did the center lines and trim out the portion of the circle that we don't need here, your drawing will be complete for that one. Now to complete everything else, you would want to go ahead and do the other two from that sheet. And then I'll come back in and show you how to put that in your layout.